So this is one is being recorded about like 5 minutes after chapter 3. This is chapter 4 of the My Accidental novel, affectionately called "Smells Like Teen Spirit." And make $10 of what I'm referencing there. Fun fact: you won't get paid. It's pretty obvious. It's really fucking obvious, guys. Seriously, it's obvious. But this one's kind of weird. So have fun. All right, give me 1 second to get everything set up again. All right, chapter 4, Smells Like Teen Spirit, July 18th, 2043, 10 years before the first Terrico incident. 3 cheers for heavy explosives. The 5 of us yelled to heaven as we celebrate at the microchip, a small tech bar where they serve cheap watered-down beer and offer free charging for cybernetics. Ronnie's downed his 5th drink in the past hour. He was big as he was at it, with enough gene mods in him to barely qualify him as human. Scaly skin, beefed up muscles, and even eyes that glowed in the dark. Hank was the oldest among us, coming in at 38. He was a veteran cyberdecker with his A-link showing proudly. He was holding down Matilda, our cybernetic juggernaut, who could probably bench press him if asked to, even without her cybernetic implants. She was starting to get rowdy and wanting to fight. Eclair nursed a martini that none of us bothered trying to pronounce. An infiltration expert and all-around saboteur extraordinaire. Also the only one of us bothering to keep the books in order. I sat off to the side, drinking a Chinese beer with a fake ID. I was 18 in 2 hours, and was somewhat a protege to these pros. I was not as strong as Ronnie. I barely weighed 120, let alone a slab of meat. Yeah, he was. Didn't have an A-Link installed like Hank, even though he kept trying to get one installed in me for a really good dock he knew. I wasn't nearly as well chromed. I wasn't nearly as well chromed as Matilda, while she was rocking military-grade spine enhancement cyberware. My left arm was a junker with a simple hand, and my leg was a refurbished industrial peg leg. I wasn't as smart as Eclair either, though she always said I had potential, with those deep blue eyes staring into my soul. What I was, however, was a straight doctor's apprentice with enough experience to patch together most people, not enough to open a practice. As I was sipping on my drink, I heard a distinct shit as Matilda's arms went offline. A little blue spit of wire going haywire from Hank trying to stop her from punching Ronnie. Wordlessly, I moved over with the soldering kit and began to fix her up, even as she started yelling at Hank about breaking her arm. "All of you, payments are coming through," Eclair said with a detached apathy. She lit a thick stick that she had, puffing the long purple rod, smoke escaping through her nostrils. At once, 4 dings were heard on the compads. The message was simple, as promised. 5 million won for each. I'll be in touch. The Fox. The four let out cheers. Eclair routed my cut. A measly noise as my budget compad lit up. 1.5 million won. My grin must have been showing as she nodded in my direction as I finished fixing up Matilda, who nearly took my head off with it after trying it out again. Where I was from, 500,000 won was living big. I could live like a king among peasants for a month. I tapped my pad, routing the money through different accounts, some savings, some checkings, others into investments and medical payments. The others were already talking about what they were spending it on. Ronnie was getting more skin grafts and buying that new Silverado repeater he's been eyeing. Hank talked big about buying some new toys from his deck dealer, some military-grade security breakers. Matilda slammed the table and said she'd put that down payment on that new truck she's been wanting, the one with armor plates on it. Claire sat silently as usual, but through the reflection of her glasses, the Catfight Showdown page was already pulled up. 50,000 on Amazon Goddess, 45,000 on Juniper Bee. The other gambling apps running in the background. Street Ronin were simple people. The next high, the next job, for many of them, was the only thing that mattered, leading to a cycle of dependence on doing jobs. Ronnie's dietary needs equaled about 25,000 a week if he was lucky. Hank owed the triads another 25 million he didn't have. Matilda's cybernetics didn't pay for themselves, and I knew Eclair's debts were higher than she let on due to her never wanting to buy anything on credit. Even though I wasn't excluded from the monetary problems either, my paycheck was rapidly depleted in seconds as the money got wired and accepted. That moved on as one by one the Ronin left, stumbling home or getting carted off by another group until I found myself walking home. The juicers in this area knew me well enough to not jump the limping guy with the bag. They knew if they OD'd, I'd be the one patching them up. I knocked on the clinic's door. The old man, Dr. Nordio, greeted me with a stained white coat, stained in blood and sweat. He was older. He was an older Asian man, bags under his eyes and a bushy white beard. Also the only doctor still operating in this neighborhood. Not 3 Yakuza with bullets in them, and one already died on the operating table. Get your ass in here. The usual shortness was followed by the intense swearing in Japanese as the doctor's daughter yelled back, "If you keep screaming, I'm going to cut something worse with this saw." She snapped at the hardened Yakuza, currently bawling on the table with a half-drink bottle of the doctor's special drink in his hand. The teenage doctor was sawing into the bone of the leg. His blood spurted across the room. 2 of the yaks were passed out, heavily bandaged, the 4th lying dead on the table with 6 shots in his torso and a cloth over his face. I held him down as she continued to saw. The crunch of bone and gurgling of tissue only punctuated the bloody operation. "Get another pack of blood. He's going down fast," she demanded behind her surgical mask. Norio himself had held down the other leg to allow her to use both hands to saw through the bone. I'd already rigged up another pack and forced him to drink more booze. Does he have allergies? None. What have you given him? Nothing besides the drink. He's got 3 flechettes in his leg, and an armor piercing went through his kneecap. He let out another squeak before collapsing on the table. The heartbeat monitor flatlines. The doctor dashes over to a red container and tosses me one of the needles in it. Red and blue mixed together, creating a beautiful little liquid, acting as both a stabilizer and an adrenaline shot. It is called Lazarium on the back alley markets. I pop the cap and test it. The liquid seeps slowly out of the head. "I'm injecting," I yell as I stab down into his chest. Immediately the monitor reacts, beating rapidly, and stabilizes. His eyes are stuck in shock before they glaze over and he passes down. The snaps signify that it's down. The doctor hauls the loose leg away as his daughter applies clot block to the now one-legged Yakuza. I look over at her, the both of us covered in blood. Hey. He did what? He slammed the Bunraku guard into the wall. Even I flinched when I heard the crack of its skull. Cleaned up and quieter now, the 2 of us sat in her room at the foot of her bed. It was a humble room, just large enough for a bed and a dresser. Most posters plastered along the on the wall were medical diagrams or cybernetic advertisements. We sat and conversed about my job, about the night at the clinic, and the specifics of how things were going. She was the doctor's daughter, a week older than me, and Norio delivered both of us. Her hair was the same shade as her mother's, a dark chestnut, but she kept it shorter than most girls due to her profession. She was petite for her age, though. During our youth, she'd be called a stick or a washboard by the other neighborhood girls. The guys frequently ignored her because of the lack of a rack. She rested her head on my right shoulder. Her surgical mask kept on due to her weak constitution. My left arm was charging downstairs, right next to the converted operating table known as my bed. Put my arm around her as she snuggled up closer to me. We'd been dating for a while now, but dating and being a street Ronin and being a street doctor often clashed with each other. Quiet moments like these were all the more precious. "Guess what?" I whispered, opening my compad up to reveal the payments for her medication had been processed. She was ill, always had been after the Red Plague ripped through the slums, took her mom, and laid her up for a month when she was young. She survived, but it ruined her respiratory system. She still coughed blood. She looked up at me, and I could tell beneath the mask was a beaming smile. She tackled me to the ground and kissed my forehead. The one disadvantage of being cybered up is having a distinct lack of limbs to prevent these kinds of scenarios. I'm also 18 as of 4 hours ago. I supported myself with one arm to lean up to kiss her on the neck. She pulled back and we stared at each other closely. She got up and dashed over to her door, peering out and scouting around. The doctor should be passed out downstairs with the special drink. I got up and pulled myself onto the bed. She turns around, her eyes widened. They had that devious look in them I know all too well. She killed all but one light, a dim thing above her bed, a vestige when this was a storage room. She flicked off the last lights. She swayed back and forth. Her loose-fitting shirt dangled like drooping angel wings. I'm scared. Of what? Me? I rolled onto my side. I'll have you know everything still works as it should. I have half my leg, not half my pillow, punctuated my clear statement. As I free myself from the tangle of sheets and pillow, I look back at her. She's taken her shirt off, no bra or anything. Non-existent breasts and a petite frame suited her. Well, you could pass for me if you want. She jumped on and smacked me. She jumped on me and smacked me. She sat on top of me and looked down at my broken form. I'm scared you won't come back one of these days. She ran her soft hand along my cheek and onto my chest. This was not the first time I've had this conversation with her. 6 months ago, I started acting as a street doc to a handful of Ronin. Nearly got my ass shot off a few times. She shifted herself onto me, resting on my crotch, my other head already reacting to the occasion. I slept with you for 2 years now. We've shared everything, and I'm still scared for you. I want to protect you. A few hours ago, I was performing surgery on a Yakuza after returning from a job where I fixed up a gene-modded monkey while getting shot at by security puppets with automatics. I reached behind her and pulled her close. I'm not going anywhere. Got it? I kissed her on with the mask on, the paper making the contours of her lips all the more intoxicating to think about. We continued this until she eventually broke off, the mask now wet with saliva. We both awkwardly struggled to take clothes off as limb and flesh intersect and collide. Naked as when we were born, we embrace, pressing flesh against flesh. She moves downward, winking at me. She lifts her mask just a bit as she nears my dick, now fully erect and painfully throbbing. Hang on a second. She gripped it and worked her tongue along the head, a customary practice that my mind still has trouble processing. She kissed it once, before slowly starting taking it in her mouth. It was slow and deliberate, keeping the pace to prevent me from releasing early. We took each other virginities at 16, a birthday gift from both of us. We were awkward, uncomfortable, and we still think we did something terribly wrong. But I still don't regret it. It's the regular occurrence when the old man passed out, but to both of us, it felt like walking on clouds. A pop as she pulled off, putting her back on her mask, stroking the now glistening cock slowly. I fumbled with the condom in the dark as she got ready for the next part. The rubber secured tightly, she lowered herself slowly onto me, and the slight moan was enough to know that I had reached its mark. I applied the sacred teachings of Hank, don't think about it, as she moved her hips slowly to the beat of a song we only knew. I think she enjoyed being on top, the sweat dripping as she leaned over to lock lips again. She was powerful up there, above her helpless, armless, legless boyfriend. As someone who was the ill girl the majority of her life, the thought of having that kind of power and authority must have been liberating. The beat was going faster. Her hips moved to an increased rhythm as both of us explored the bodies of each other. I felt my body melting as she shot straight upwards, moving her hips forward as she reached peak climax, deriving as much pleasure from my dick as she could. My mind was already blank, with Hank's words of don't think about it merging with take the shot. A brief exchange and pleasantries ended, with her small frame resting on top of my disfigured one. I held her close in my arms as we held each other tightly, two youthful figures in the distinct afterglow of sex. Why do you love me? Why do you love someone like me? I asked. The thought had always bubbled in the back of my mind. I make you worry. I make bad jokes. I'm a cripple. I'm not exactly a perfect cat. She put her finger to my mouth to silence me. I love you because you're flawed. You're sensitive when you need to be, but most importantly is that you care about others. She pecked at my lips with her own. You could leave me for anyone else, become some famous Ronin and make millions of won. Instead, you buy my meds, help my dad, invest in the clinic. That's because I love you. I don't want to ever lose you. I don't want to be anything without you. I wouldn't be worth it. I want a big house, her tiny whisper echoed in the darkness. I want a big house where we can hold parties all the time, invite everyone we know, and party like we'll never die. I'll give you everything. I turned my head to her, stroking her hair slowly. The best house, the best people, everything you can want. I'll give it to you. She pulled down her mask, showing her thin lips and dreamy smile, feeling the warmth of her lips on my cheek. I want you to be famous, big and famous, a man everyone knows and respects. I'm happy if I'm with you. Promise me you won't forget me when you get there, she said, her breath resting next to my ear. I won't forget you till the end of the world, I said, kissing her forehead. No matter what, then you should wake up, sir. Sir, please wake up. I need to clean the chair. Catherine's voice said firmly. Half-drunken have and half-blissful dreams seem to blend into each other as I look around. I was in my study. 3 people were lying around in various states of undress, and I was holding a bottle of brandy. After performing some impromptu investigations, I decided to drink the rest of it. I stood up, still wobbly and unsure of my footing. Catherine began diligently cleaning the chair in front of the fireplace where I'd like to relax after the party ended. Sir, don't forget you have a meeting at 4. Please get dressed before then. I stretched and yawned, the hangover getting angry with each step. Walking through the maze of my home, I managed to rummage through the personal hangover relief kit, eating a handful of pills, taking a shot of the old doctor's hooch. I looked at the bottle deeply. It took 2 months after the old man died to find where he got this shit. Some backwater still on the outskirts. Another shot. Feeling energized, I took stock of last night's party. Out 580 guests. The private security got 70 guns, 115 knives. Only threw out one kid who snuck in a firecracker pop gun through the front door. And the aches were still there. Another handful of pills, another shot. Catherine round the corner. She's an old bunwreck who reminded me of simpler days before RAs had 15 modes and you could jack 9 personalities into one of these things. Sir, may I recommend putting on some pants? Some of the guests are waking up. She tosses me a cheap pair of trousers, which I diligently put on. I often like to stride around with nothing on, like a king in a castle. The first guest I found was awake, was snorting a quick line of chi dust. Carla had long blonde hair with twin cyber eyes. She kept various shades of red, blue, and yellow irises. She looked up at me, still half asleep and half her top missing, and wearing what I believe was my pants from last night. Want some? She gave me that big, toothy grin that only a blonde could pull off. I sat next to her and quickly did a line. A jolt through my body went straight downward as my cock painfully grew inside the tight-fitting trousers. She dutifully unzipped and used her mouth to please the raging beast. I gripped the back of her head and with my left while taking another drink with my right. My left arm was an ivory-colored gyro. There's no space there. It was an ivory-colored gyro, gold highlights, and an automatic nervous system enhancement in the hand for rapid reaction. Wait, no, why do you keep doing that? Coupled with security shock of equal to 10-volt baton and a punch that could break a wall. And here I am, using it to hold some whore's head as she gobbled my cock, looking for handouts. Felt tight and quiet as I let go, letting her greedily drink my semen to appease me. Still shooting straight, old man, she quipped before going off to recover her clothes. Old man? It was my birthday last night. I just turned 48. The haze in my head slowly lifted, and as the past few days of partying and debauchery came crashing down. Oh man, that means I staggered to the study. Catherine had rearranged everything as it should be, including the picture of 19-year-old me and Oreo's daughter. She was terminal at that point. It had just gotten worse that year. She was wearing all white, repurposed one of the clinic gowns as a dress, and I was done up from the best a boy with no money could. An ill-fitting suit and a cheap-looking bow tie. An off-duty cop officiated our wedding. The old man bribed him with the alcohol. Hank took the picture. That was before he OD'd on deep diving. Matilda was there, and giving us a thumbs up. She had yet to take that shotgun to the gut. Ronnie was in the nearby clinic bed with a peace sign in the air, and he got sliced off her body parts by the triads. Claire just sat in the background, looking at the camera with that disdainful look on her face. That was before she shacked up with Lo Peg and popped out 3 kids. I was sure one was at the party last night. Roger, Jules, Olive, and Slicer were there as well. 2 of them were dead, one went corporate, and Slicer found religion. And there she was, a deep chestnut brown, short as can be. She took off her mask, giving that knowing smile. Look, I had to stick up my ass and was about to pass out. Sir, remember to zip up, please. Catherine's voice pulled me back to reality. Pulled me back to reality. It should be not pulled him back to reality. Your daily attire is in your room. Please put it on the earliest convenience. Reality was far lonelier than I remembered. Married at 19, widowed at 20, bachelor till death. I took another drink. The meeting was at 4, and I had a package being delivered at 8. And that's chapter 4. A little bit more grim than the other ones. Not as much sex, but I think that was on purpose. So that was about 19 minutes. So thank you all very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.